Amhara Fano People's Organization, AFPO. Official response to the U.S. Department of State's 2024 Human Rights Report on Ethiopia. August 14, 2025. The Amhara Fano People's Organization AFPO extends its appreciation to the United States Department of State Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor for its 2024 Human Rights Report on Ethiopia. We recognize the report's balanced tone and its reliance on credible sources, and we offer this response in the spirit of constructive engagement and mutual commitment to the protection of human rights. As a nation with a distinguished legacy in defending democratic values and human dignity, the United States plays a vital role in shaping global human rights discourse. We are particularly encouraged by the continued attention to Ethiopia's complex and evolving situation, and we respectfully submit the following observations for consideration by the Department of State and the broader diplomatic community. On the mischaracterization of Fano as a militia. Report excerpt. During the year, the Amhara and Oromia regions experienced conflict between government forces and Fano militia and the Ola, respectively. AFPO response. The term militia inaccurately describes the nature and structure of Fano. In the Ethiopian context, militias are state-organized and state-armed entities. Fano, by contrast, is a non-state, community-based and self-organized movement, rooted in the historical and cultural identity of the Amhara people. There are multiple Fano organizations, each with distinct leadership and operational frameworks. We respectfully request that future references distinguish between these entities and avoid generalizations that may misrepresent their nature and objectives. 2. On allegations of unlawful killings. Report excerpt. There were also reports of widespread unlawful killings of civilians and government officials in the Amhara and Oromia regions and elsewhere, including by the Oromo Liberation Army and Amhara Fano militia. AFPO response. The phrase Amhara Fano militia risks unfairly implicating all Fano-affiliated groups in alleged human rights violations. AFPO unequivocally condemns any unlawful killing of civilians, regardless of their political or institutional affiliations. We affirm our commitment to international humanitarian law and are prepared to cooperate fully with independent investigations. We also call for accountability to be pursued on an individual basis, rather than through broad and imprecise labels. 3. On civilian casualty figures in the Amhara region. Report excerpt. According to the OHHR, from January 2023 to January 2024, at least 1,351 civilians were killed in the country. Of these, 740 were in the Amhara region. AFPO response. While we acknowledge the report's reliance on credible sources, we believe the figures cited significantly underrepresent the scale of violence and civilian casualties in the Amhara region. Numerous independent observers and local organizations have documented a far higher toll, particularly in areas affected by ongoing military operations and aerial bombardments. We recognize that limited access and underfunding of monitoring mechanisms contribute to data gaps. We encourage increased support for human rights documentation efforts to ensure more comprehensive and accurate reporting. 4. On attacks against humanitarian workers. Report excerpt. The VOA reported a humanitarian worker, Yared Malis, was kidnapped for ransom and, later killed. 14 aid workers reported being kidnapped during the year. AFPO response. We strongly condemn all acts of violence against humanitarian personnel. The humanitarian crisis in the Amhara region is severe, and the presence of aid organizations is essential to alleviating suffering. In territories under our administration, AFPO guarantees the safety and operational freedom of humanitarian actors. We also urge the Ethiopian government to lift restrictions on media and human rights organizations to allow for independent verification and reporting. 5. On the use of the term Western Tigray and the importance of neutral terminology. AFPO response. We respectfully express concern regarding the use of the term Western Tigray in the 2024 Human Rights Report. This designation lacks historical legitimacy and risks reinforcing territorial claims that were established under coercive and its own unconstitutional circumstances. The term Western Tigray was introduced by the Tigray People's Liberation Front (TPLF) following their rise to power in 1991, during which they forcibly annexed the historically Amhara-administered areas of Wolkate, Tegid and Telemt into the Tigray region. These areas have deep-rooted cultural, historical, and administrative ties to Gondar and Wollo, not Tigray. For nearly 3 decades, the TPLF is accused of committing severe and systematic human rights abuses in these territories, including forced displacement, demographic engineering, and political repression. Importantly, a declassified U.S. diplomatic cable dated May 16, 1979, published by the Public Library of U.S. Diplomacy, clearly identifies Shire, not Wolkite or Teged, as the area historically known as Western Tigray. The TPLF is particularly active in Western Tigray Shire, but is expanding its harassment activities to Central Tigray. U.S. Embassy, Addis Ababa, Cable ID, 1970, 9, Addis 01739E. This historical record confirms that the use of Western Tigray to describe Wolkate, Tegid and Telemt is a post-1991 political imposition, not a reflection of historical or administrative reality. We therefore urge the U.S. Department of State and the broader international community to refrain from using the term Western Tigray in official communications. Adopt neutral and historically grounded terminology, such as Wolkate, Tegede, Setit, Humera, and Raya, which more accurately reflect the identities and heritage of the local populations. Support the establishment of an impartial, transparent boundary review commission to adjudicate administrative claims based on historical records and demographic data. Using neutral terminology not only promotes accuracy but also helps preserve space for peaceful dialogue, legal review, and long-term reconciliation. 6. Call for international oversight and access. AFPO remains committed to transparency, accountability, and the protection of civilians. We respectfully call on the international community to avoid generalized terminology that may obscure the distinct identities and responsibilities of various actors. Support independent, impartial investigations into all alleged human rights violations. Advocate for unrestricted access to conflict-affected regions for journalists, humanitarian agencies, and human rights monitors. We stand ready to cooperate with all credible international bodies and reaffirm our dedication to upholding the principles of justice, human dignity, and the rule of law. Amhara Fano People's Organization AFPO.